Freshman here. This is my first year at Winona State University. My name's Scott Olson. I don't know why you chose Winona State University, but I can tell you why I chose it. I chose Winona State University for my freshman year because it is a unbelievably strong, high-quality university. We know this in terms of the stories we hear from our alumni and alumnae. We know this from the stories we hear from the grad schools and the employers that take our students after they've graduated from here. And we know it from objective data that we get from the national survey of student engagement, data we get on our students' persistent and completion rate, where we lead the MnSCU system and we do it at a high value to you, the students. So I'm actually a student here. It is my freshman year, however, and I'm living in Lourdes, and I'm having some of the same experiences that many of you had when you were first-year students on campus. Food service, kind of dorm life, what to do, you know, in the evenings and on the weekends and so on, so I can relate to a lot of that. But it's a beautiful place, and one of the main reasons I chose it, one of the main reasons I wanted to be here was because of the amazing students we have here. The kind of students we admit and the kind of young people they become and the kind of graduates that they are when they leave. They're unbelievable. And I've learned that firsthand because not only do I get to work with them kind of here on campus, but they're my neighbors. They live just down the hall from me. So I see them coming and I see them going, and I'm so proud of the students here at Winona State University. So with that, I'm available to take your questions. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your time, Dr. Olson. In your Athenaeum speech, you mentioned that technology being integrated into classrooms. Next year, there's a possibility of the tablets being integrated along with the laptop program. What future plans do you have on integrating the laptops or the tablets into the laptop program, and how is it going to affect tuition and technology fees?
What's your name?
Paige.
Paige. Hi, Paige. Okay, thank you for the question, Paige. So the question is, what's the future for tablets as part of the eWarrior program? How's it going to integrate into classrooms? You know, one of the things that that is so important here is that the technology that we make use of isn't just bells and whistles with no purpose. They have to be the kinds of technologies that actually enhance and improve learning and prepare students here for the kind of things that they'll need to be able to do to be functioning citizens and, you know, great workers on into the future. We've got one of the leading laptop programs, but clearly content today doesn't care what platform it's on. So many of you have other devices. I just put an Android phone on there. So I have an iPad, I've got an Android phone, I've got a Windows-based PC, and I just got an all-in-one that'll be running Windows 8 as soon as they release it. And like you, I expect content to be able to float across all those different platforms. There's things that iPads are really good at, and there's things they're not really good at. iPads are really great at content consumption, watching things, pretty good at reading things, although I'll still take a Kindle, but they're pretty good at consuming things. They're not so great at creating content. A Mac laptop or a Dell laptop, an HP laptop like we have here, those are going to be better for actually creating, for writing papers, for creating content. So the idea behind what you're asking about is that we think students here would probably benefit from Winona State having both available, so that there'd be an integrated strategy where students are creating content but consuming content, and that it goes from platform to platform to platform.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Thank you for your time. My name is Samantha.
Samantha.
The University of Minnesota has briefly talked about capping tuition to assure that things stay accessible to many students. Is there anything that you are going to do to make sure that tuition stays accessible to our students?
Well, first off, Samantha, thank you for the question. First off, Winona State University has already done something. And what it's done is it lowered its tuition rate the lowest of any of the state universities. So if you check with your friends at the 6 other state universities, you'll see that we raised our tuition rate this year the lowest of any of them. That was a deliberate strategy. We were allowed to go higher. We made a choice not to, and the reason we chose not to was for student affordability. Look carefully, look closely at what the University of Minnesota is doing and what they're saying. they're not making a unilateral promise, I believe, to hold tuition down. They're saying if the state is willing to invest this amount of money, then they will hold tuition down, basically covering up all the difference in that cost. And you know, that's an interesting strategy. We'll see how that plays out. If the University of Minnesota gets all the money that they're saying it would take to hold tuition down, they will be doing very well indeed. And holding tuition down to 0 or wherever will be easy. But they've made it conditional. And the thing I've enjoyed about the Minsky system is we've not made it conditional. We've tried to do our best to hold tuition down despite, or in spite of, whatever the state might be doing with its funding. And then we've tried to act accordingly. It's a challenging thing, Samantha, because on the one hand, we do want to keep college as affordable as we can for the students. But on the other hand, as the state reduces the amount of its appropriation to us, as it cuts and cuts what we get, we can sacrifice quality. And you rightly expect, students here rightly expect, that we will have great faculty and have great equipment and great facilities and a great learning experience for you, and that's a reasonable expectation. So we're not in the cut rate end of the business. We're not going to keep cutting faculty and cutting quality just to save a dime. It puts us in a tough spot. But the U of M strategy is, the main thing I'd like to underscore is it's a conditional strategy. But thank you for the question, Samantha. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you, Mr. President. In your letter addressing the students and the faculty titled The Great River, you talked about hopes and dreams of Winona State University. What are your hopes and dreams for this campus, and have they changed since you were?
What's your name?
Morgan.
Morgan? Hi, thank you for the question, Morgan. Actually, that wasn't a letter, that was a speech. So it became a letter. It got kind of repurposed for that. But the origins of that was a talk that I gave during Welcome Week. There were a few members of the Student Senate were there, but by and large, it was before most students were back on campus. We're spending some time this fall talking about hopes and dreams, and those conversations are going to expand quite a bit. I guess my answer to your question is my main hope and dream for Winona State University is that it have hopes and dreams, that it feel empowered and enabled to see a greater, brighter future lying ahead, that it feel free and empowered to dream and to think about what it might want to become. We've come out of a tough patch where budgets were lean, and frankly it was hard for a lot of us to have hopes and dreams, to think about how tomorrow might be brighter than today, because tomorrow didn't look like it would be. It looked like it would be dimmer, you know, less vibrant than today. But the budget looks strong, and there's reason to think that maybe going forward there is room for hopes and dreams. So that's I suppose that's my fondest desire. I didn't come here with a stock set of things that I'm hoping to achieve here, other than to engage the campus in a shared governance approach to how we make decisions about moving forward. So what those hopes and dreams are, frankly, I think there's folks here who have much greater sense of what we could do than I do. In fact, I'll tell you, I've only had like 3 really great ideas my whole life. One was to marry my wife, Kelly. One was to come here and work at Winona State. You know, what the other one is, we can talk about some other time. But that's it for me. You know, so the great hopes and dreams are kind of actually out there among you and with the faculty back there and all across campus and in the community. That's where the great hopes and dreams are. So that's my hope and dream is that we'll get at them. Thank you. Yes?
Hi, thank you for your time. My name is Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
What is your view on student life and development now that you have kind of an insider point of view from living in the Reds house? I didn't come up through student affairs or through student life and development. My own background was as an academic affairs person. And it was only a couple years ago that I came to have student affairs type things reporting to me. Students spend, a typical student is in class here probably 15 hours a week. And assuming you're a residential student, like I am, the rest of your time is spent really in student leadership and development, whether you know it or not. You know, living in the residence halls or eating in Crisco or participating in different student groups and things, that has to do with student affairs. So what's critical, the critical thing, is that what we're doing in the academic side, what we're doing with the curriculum, with the courses, with the faculty, nicely fits with what we're doing in those kind of extracurricular, out of the classroom stuff. The faculty will tell you that having you for a mere 3 hours a week, what's typical in Mass Comm? Are you on 3 credit? Yes. 3 credit courses primarily? Okay. So most of the faculty will tell you that having you for 3 hours a week, they can't scratch the surface of what they'd like to, you know, be able to have you learn about mass communication or anything else. So when student life and development is working beautifully with academic affairs, you can expand the classroom experience in time and in space and capture many more learning opportunities. And now, as far as living in Lourdes goes, anybody here in Lourdes? Anybody? My sister. What house are you? So we hate your guts. I'm Vela. So that's it, just her? Okay. Any former Lourdes or any Velas here? Yeah. What do you mean was? You're Vela for life, aren't you? Well, you're a warrior for life, I can tell you that. But what I've learned from living there is we have a great kind of student life program. It's really kind of, I think, a fun place to live. The folks who live on my floor are completely charming, and they've been just great neighbors. I was afraid that I was going to have a kind of a negative effect on their lives, and maybe I have, by like making it so it's no fun to live there. My daughters, when I told them I was thinking about living in the dorm this semester, my daughters said, "Oh, Dad," they're college age. They said, "They don't want you living in there. You're going to like wreck it." So maybe I've wrecked it. I don't know. Have I wrecked it? Has it been horrible? Okay. So hopefully I haven't wrecked it. But for me, it's been awesome because to kind of have that experience as a first-year student myself and see what it's like to live there and see what it's like to be here, I've become kind of one of you in that sense, and that's been a really great learning experience, and I'm very proud of the SLD folks and what they've been able to do there. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Marcy.
Marcy.
I recently talked to an English professor, and they actually just had a meeting about plagiarism and what they're gonna, like, what they're enforcing. And my question was basically, some students don't really realize that they plagiarize because they don't know how to correctly cite information. So what do you see as the line between unintentional plagiarism and actual plagiarism?
So Marcy, this is a very interesting question, and in fact, it goes back to a talk that I gave about technology that was kind of previously referenced here. And I have kind of complex and somewhat contradictory thoughts about this. I think there is a generational difference. Digital media allow students who are digital natives to sample pieces of content from different sources and recombine them in new ways. And the best example I can give you of that, this may seem, you know, if you only ever knew digital media, if you kind of grew up in a world where there always were computers and there always was digital media, you sort of don't know the context that some of us have of an analog era before where this wasn't possible. But a lot of what passes for music today is pastiche. No. This, you think I'm not? I like music today, so this is not my critique of it. I'm just, what I'm pointing out is that for folks that are my age, listening to current music, we will often recognize bits of songs that are from our era that have been sampled, extracted, and dropped down in a new song. And sometimes beautifully interwoven with other bits of music from other things. And this is something that kind of began with hip-hop and scratching, you know, and you probably don't know what scratching is, but, and we see it, you know, through so much of the music you hear today. My point is,
that it is a natural thing for somebody who grew up with that to think of the act of creativity. The act of creativity is an act of sampling bits and pieces of different things and recombining them into something new. And folks do this all the time. You can go on YouTube and you can see funny, creative movies that are people re-editing. There's actually a version of Star Wars: The Phantom Menace without Jar Jar Binks, which is a huge improvement if you think about it, right? Am I right? But there's a version where somebody went through and just sort of redid the movie, not with George Lucas's permission, and took Jar Jar Binks out of it. So that's it. You know, folks who grew up with digital natives might say that was an act of creativity. But folks who are analog natives see that as kind of copyright infringement or trademark infringement or, and this is what I'm getting to, plagiarism. So I think it's natural for folks who are digital natives to think of the act of writing a paper as an act of sampling, as an act of going to different websites, taking something, cutting it, pasting it, cutting something, pasting something, cutting something, pasting something, maybe some bridge language, I don't know, and calling that a work of originality. Now you need to know professors, you know, folks of my generation don't consider that originality. We wouldn't call that creativity, we'd call that plagiarism. But I think there is a generational difference, and I'll be quite curious when digital natives become the ones running these places, if there might be a different idea of how that works and how that might be, or how to account for the part of that that's original and the part of it that's appropriated. There's a word for this, it's a French word called pastiche, and postmodern theorists like Lyotard study this and talk about how things that are original can sometimes derive from recombining bits of other things. So I guess my own position is that we need to do a better job of communicating. We, the analog natives, need to do a better job of communicating with the digital natives about what our expectations are, and we need to understand that you don't necessarily see it the way we do, and we need to do a better job of helping you understand how we see it so you can write the kind of work or produce the kind of films or audios or whatever, music, that we expect you to, that's truly original work.
So do you think that when you say talk to people, like talk to the students, do you think that that would be the first step, and then if they do it again, they would be serious? Because some teachers just totally fail you. They don't talk to you. They don't explain anything. So do you think that's more of a...
So an individual professor is sovereign over their own classroom and over how they're going to grade. But it would be my hope that they would make clear to students what their expectations were. And I think the more we have conversations about it, the more we'll understand that not everybody engaging in this behavior is engaging in willful deceit. I guess that would be my main point. That there are students who write papers this way who... what's true plagiarism would be a student who goes to one of those websites, you know, where you just buy them. That's rank plagiarism, that's totally deceitful, and I hope none of you do that, but people do. But a student who's, you know, maybe earnestly, but mistakenly, taking this cut and paste approach or using bits and pieces and trying to put them together and thinking without attribution, right? And thinking that's original thought, that isn't necessarily willful deceit or misrepresentation. Might be, but isn't necessarily. You know, it might just be a misunderstanding between the generations about what creativity is. When Rick James, they don't know who Rick James is, but if Rick James, the first time Rick James heard, "Can't touch this," I don't know if he called his lawyers right away and said, "Shut that down." And there are artists out there who, well, doesn't Deadmau5 use just lots of sampled stuff? Deadmau5, right? Okay. Yeah, okay, thank you. And if you've got any queued up in there, you could play it. I'm trying to think. My daughters listen to one artist who's underground, because so much of the music that the artist does is total. Golly, maybe I'll text her after we're done here and I'll get you in. But it's all sampled. The artist, this particular artist doesn't, I say artist, so that's contentious right there, doesn't even know how to play an instrument or anything. It's all sampled. It's all just appropriated from other sources and recombined, and it's really kind of weird, interesting, challenging music. I'll think of the name of the artist. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. Winona State is currently the leading source of light pollution in the town of Winona. Do you have any plans of conserving the natural resource of the night sky on campus?
Your name is?
Madison.
Madison? Hi, Madison. Thanks for the question. I probably was a contributor to that light pollution on Saturday night because there was a night football game in the stadium and the lights were all bright, and I'm not sure exactly when they turned off, but the game must have gone till about 9 or so. And there are ways, I haven't really looked at this in detail here at Winona. There are ways to mitigate that effect by the kind of lighting you use and how you throw it down on the field to try to keep it from sort of filling the whole night sky up with light. And I'll just confess, I don't know what kind of conversations have happened here so far on the Winona State campus. I haven't been a part of them about whether we should be moving that direction or we shouldn't. A lot of, as I've driven past our athletics complex in the evenings and seen the lights on, more often than not, the reason they're on is for campus recreation purposes, not for athletic purposes, if you get the distinction. It's non-athlete students out there, you know, competing in different kind of intramural sports and things like that. So we would need a very wide campus conversation if we were going to just try to go dark, you know, at a certain time of the night. There's a lot of student clubs, student organizations that like to have those lights on until some hours of the evening so they can get their intramurals in, and we don't have a whole lot of space for the intramurals to begin with. But that having been said, there are things you can do to mitigate light pollution.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, thanks, President Olson. My name is Wyatt. I'm a Rochester resident. Now, in November, there's going to be a vote on a sales tax extension, part of the funds of which will be used for the University of Minnesota Rochester campus. I was just wondering how that might affect the WSU Rochester campus.
Thanks, Wyatt. So what they have right now in Rochester is a local option sales tax that's set to expire. They use that local option sales tax. It's mainly a tax that, say, folks who would be coming to the Mayo Clinic for treatment and are staying in the hotels and eating in the restaurants, you know, or their families and so on, are paying that, and it helps pay for local higher education initiatives. And over the years, Winona State has benefited a little more or a little less from different initiatives. As you say, they're going to vote to extend it on Election Day in November. And I don't know how the polling's going, so I'm not sure whether it's, you know, likely to pass or not. This time around, the primary beneficiary, as you say, is the University of Minnesota Rochester. And I think what they're going to do with it is the current space that UMR is in is, I think, an abandoned food court from a downtown mall. And it's not ideal. And they have acquired some land just down from that dorm that they built, that res hall. What street is that? Second, maybe, or I'm not sure what street that is. Yeah. So they have some land there, and I think part of this is going to help to build, kind of begin to build a separate campus. We are really not in any way in conflict with what UMR does, where they have carved out their niche. For one thing, they're much smaller than us, and they're much smaller than Winona State University Rochester. So even UMR, with the U of M brand and everything they're doing there, it's still smaller than what Winona State is doing in Rochester. They're so specialized. You know, I think I would be very concerned if they started to get into areas that we considered our bread and butter areas. Teacher education, massive expansion of their nursing program, social work, computer science, things that we're doing in Rochester. I see no indication that they're going to, under this chancellor, Stephen Lemkool. I've seen no indication they're going to do that. We do have a little piece of this local option sales tax, apparently, in that we are going to be, there's a STEM center they're going to build where they do 2+2 STEM initiatives, and I think we have a little piece of that in partnership with Rochester Community Technical College. But right now, those three institutions, U of M Rochester, Rochester Community Technical College, and Winona State University Rochester, those three institutions have gotten along very well. We really are not, we're very complementary, we're not really competing.
Thank you, Wyatt.
We have time for maybe one more question.
Nobody's going to ask me why I like Treme? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So and I know a lot of students say that they like come here because of the natural beauty and
Yeah.
Winona and stuff. So I was wondering what your opinion or concern on the possible frac sand mining is.
So, what was your name again? Mary. So Mary's asking about the natural beauty of Winona and frac sand mining. The university doesn't have, well, first off, I agree with your premise. This is a beautiful place, and I'm sure that for many of us, for me, for my family, for many of you, that was part of its attraction, was it's just beautiful. And the fact that those river bluffs on both sides still look like they do after all these years is a miraculous thing. Winona State University does not have a position on frac sand per se. There's a lot of arguments on either side of it, and we don't have a position per se on whether or not there should be frac sanding. We do have a position on safety around campus. So our major concern is the volume of trucks that are going up and down Main Street, which is Highway 43, right through town. And those of you who park on the other side of Main and have had to try to cross it when trucks are rumbling down, you know that can be very scary, very hazardous, very dangerous. And there's parking on both sides of the street, and it's hard for drivers to see students coming across. And so that's really what we're worried about. And we've been pretty consistent in expressing that worry about safety. And it's my understanding that there's some broad agreement that the frac sand trucks will not take that route. They will not be going down Main Street. That is my understanding. So that was really our main concern with regard to that.
Do you have any concern that it might affect the amount of incoming students?
Do I think that, well, you mean the trucks rumbling through or the frac sanding itself? I don't know. I guess I'd need to be educated a little bit on the relationship between the natural beauty and how frac sand mining is done up on those bluffs. You know, what's it going to do? I don't know that, Mary. I haven't looked at it closely enough. I think if Main Street felt like an interstate with all the trucks going up and up, down and up and down and up and down, yes, I think that could affect student enrollment. I absolutely do. But I guess I don't know enough about what the frac sand mining is going to do to the bluffs to know whether it's going to affect student enrollment. Thank you.
Was there one question up here?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so campus is starting to try and put on more late night activities on the weekends to help give students a different option other than going out and partying. What do you think of these efforts?
And I'm not going to call you Pixis. Okay, Emily. So it's interesting because this fall, I'm told, some of the neighbors near campus have sensed a little different relationship with students than we've had in the past. And it may be a function. I just today had a meeting with the city manager. And also there was the president of St. Mary's and the president of Southeast Tech. And we were talking about this issue. And what we're trying to figure out is whether the social hosting law and whether the 30% rule are actually affecting student entertainment options on a Friday and Saturday night. There do seem to be more students kind of out and about at 2 in the morning, and maybe the social hosting law, you all know what I'm talking about with that? Okay, so what the social hosting law is that basically if you are hosting a party in your home and if the police come and there's some underage drinkers in there, that you, the host of the party, will be held responsible, as opposed to just, hey, I didn't know. So what it's done is, well, you could probably tell me, but what I think it's done is it's kind of made those parties smaller and more quiet, and maybe if you're 19 or 20 years old, you don't get invited to those parties. You're just not welcome there. So there's some speculation that some changes in local ordinances have changed student behavior as a result. So the conversation then turned to what kind of options would be attractive you know, on a Friday or Saturday night as an alternative to wandering around the streets of Winona at 2 in the morning, you know, turning garden gnomes upside down or whatever folks do at 2 in the morning. And we all of us concluded that the best ones to answer that question are students. So you will see, I've already had some conversations with Alexandra Griffin, your student senate president, but there'll be more conversations going forward about, you know, because we could sit there and dream all night. Like I might think that like a 24-hour Godzilla marathon would really be great, but I have a feeling I might be, well, actually some of them might really like that, but I have a feeling that many students wouldn't find that particularly attractive. So, you know, what, a casino night, DJs, dance parties, an all-night, I don't know, soccer tournament, you know, what kind of things would be fun? You know, a 53-year-old sitting there trying to figure that out is probably not the best bet. So we're going to be asking you the answer to the question of what those alternatives ought to be. But yes, we'd like to provide some.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.